Hi, I'm Alex Pault, and I'd like to welcome you to another live stream episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, I wanted to talk about some of the topics that have come up in previous live streams when we've been talking about Rolex and Tudor and the market. And I don't like to talk about market situations, as when it comes to like the cost of Rolexes or try to predict where the prices are going to go. But I do like to look at the history of the companies involved and how they've evolved and grown within the marketplace. And so I thought, let's talk about that whole aspect of Rolex trying to or succeeding in becoming one of the upper tier of Swiss watchmakers, and how Tudor is positioned now by Rolex as not what Hans Wilsdorf originally intended, but as its own brand that can replace Rolex in the premium sports watch niche in the marketplace. Oh, hey, how's it going, Neil? Nice to see you, my friend. Nice to see you, Antares. Nice to see you as well. Because well, first things first. Very pedestrian tonight, drinking Beck's, although it is a good beer. Um, you know, when you think about the evolution of the companies recently, it's a good thing to remember where Tudor came from and its relationship with Rolex. First, uh, for those who don't know, Hans Wilsdorf founded Rolex originally in England and moved it to Switzerland. And as he had no children, he eventually made it a charitable trust, and it is currently a nonprofit operating out of Switzerland, which is one of the reasons it could take such a long and deep view of the marketplace. But also, Hans Wilsdorf was a marketing genius. He really was. Um, when I think of people of his caliber, I think of someone like Noah Lee, for example. Noah Lee was a friend of mine. I mean, he's still around, but we kind of drifted apart. But there was a time when I was a close friend of his, and he founded Monster Cable. He was a rack jobber, and no, actually, though Branston was started as a rack jobber. He was a drummer, Noel, and he used to like using thick speaker wire for his stereo equipment. People would ask him about it, and he eventually wound up selling it, and then turned it into a company, and then turned it into a multi-million-dollar international company. So, when you think about a product like wire, speaker wire, RCA cable, and the ability to corner the market in one sense, make it, your own. Up until Monster came along, nobody even thought about speaker wire. And he managed to turn it into an international multi-million dollar business. So I would say that it's a apt comparison with Noel Lee and Hans Wilsdorf, or Steve Jobs for that matter, and Hans Wilsdorf, because Wilsdorf wasn't a watchmaker. He was a watch salesperson. He was a watch business person. He was in the he was in the business of selling watches, not making them. And so he had Rolexes made to his specifications and sold them. And his marketing genius and positioning in the marketplace, and the fact that he called the watch marketplace for wristwatches when he founded the company, it was founded as a wristwatch company, not as a pocket watch company. Um, and World War One, of course, proved him right. A few years after he founded the company, World War One started and basically killed the pocket watch, because you can't fight a you can't fight a war with your hands occupied. You're with a rifle or an aircraft or a tank or vehicle or whatever, and then haul your pocket watch out of your pocket to find out when the artillery barrage is going to stop. So And the fact that they were used by grizzly soldiers killing one another on a field of battle kind of quashed the reputation that watches had of being feminine watch accessories, because up until that point, mostly women wore them. But Wilsdorf saw the opportunity to create a market for wristwatches for people of action, soldiers, pilots, mountain climbers, swimmers. The woman who first swam the English Channel wore a Rolex. At Hans Wilsdorf's support and I wouldn't say insistence, he had to sell her into wearing it, but she was willing to wear it, and it survived the entire journey unscathed, demonstrating that the oyster, right? That's where the term oyster comes from in Rolex, hard shell waterproof, that the oyster waterproof case design was successful and could keep the water, I mean, keep the water out of the watch, keep the watch water resistant. And to this day, for a suit watch, or you could say for a high-end casual watch, a Datejust, well, if you get it with the fluted white gold bezel, that's one of the reasons I sold my Datejust, is that I was only wearing it with a suit. It felt too dressy for me to wear casually, which is actually related to this topic today when we're talking about Rolex and Tudor and their relationship to each other and the marketplace, you know? Milad Sky, hey, how's it going, my friend? Just in time to decide between a Black Bay 58 and a Seamaster Diver 300. Neil, I do love my Tudor GMT, so happy with it. Well, exactly. See, and that's why, for example, Milad, that is a tough decision. Me personally, I would go with the Omega because I'm an Omega lover. I've at times I've had upwards of 5 Omegas simultaneously in my collection. Right now I have 3. I've got somebody who wants to buy the Globemaster, and I've had it for such a long long time. I've had it for a while, and it's been one of my favorite pieces in my collection. But I think it's time for it to move on to make room for other pieces in the collection. And I just purchased this Air King, put it on a black NATO with green piping to bring out the green in the face. Um, and the money that I had gotten from the sale of my day chest that I had planned on saving went into this because, of course, after making a speech, about how I'm done with Rolex and all, uh, there was one exception because I did everyone did know I was on the waiting list for an Air King, and, but I did just last week, say how I'm, glad to have sold the Rolex. It's less hassle for my collection security-wise, and I'm less of a target on the street, and actually, in one sense, my recent purchase is less of a security risk than a higher end. I shouldn't say higher end Rolex because the Air King is not a low end Rolex. It's just that being a very sports oriented Rolex and having a very bold face, it's kind of the Brits would say a Marmite. Americans, some would say a Saab kind of presentation. You love it or you hate it. Or you say, "Well, it doesn't look like a Rolex, so I don't want it." Whereas that's one of the reasons I wanted it because all of my, well, I shouldn't say all of, some of my issues with Rolex had to do with, the fact that, they're just such a juggernaut in the marketplace and command so much money, and everyone knows that they become their own target. Whereas, at least the Air King is not on the, at the top of the list of Rolexes that people want to steal. And frankly, I had an Explorer 2, which I really enjoyed because it was also a non-luxury Rolex, as it were. If you want to look at it, if you want to call that kind of a watch, for example, I think the Oyster Perpetual is a premium casual, luxury casual watch. I wouldn't call it a sports watch. I would call the Explorer 2 a sports watch. I wouldn't even call the current Explorer a sports watch. It's a two-tone gold steel watch. But the Air King is pretty much still sports oriented. The nice thing about it, and it's unabashedly Rolex, but it's not a high profile piece. And so, like I said, I was on the waiting list at my local dealer, and I didn't get the call. I didn't get the call. The I happened to have the money from the sale of the, Datejust burning a hole in my pocket. I shouldn't say it was I wasn't intending to buy anything, actually. I literally wasn't. I had really was like, you know, "Don't buy a watch." And I was walking by one of my local dealers, and this was in the window, and it hadn't been before. And I go in and I'm like, What's with the Air King? Because this is the new model, the 126900." And I asked him, what's up with this watch? And he says, well, it's a commission. And normal I was a little saddened because normally commissions, they ask for a lot of money. I mean, well, I asked for it too when I put my watch up for commission. And I'll usually haggle, but not everyone does. And I was able to get this at a very reasonable price. I didn't get it. I didn't pay top market price. I didn't pay below market price, but I paid at the bottom of the current market value. So I consider it a good deal because I do expect Rolex prices to eventually go up. Maybe not in the near future, but they will eventually go up because the demand is still there. Supplies are still limited. And now that Rolex is buying up used pieces for their own certified pre-owned program, it's going to Rolex prices are going to go back up. And they may not go up comically like they did earlier, last year, but I do believe that they are going to continue to incrementally raise, probably on par ahead of treasury bonds or something along those lines. Because especially if you do have the willpower I mean, you should always wear a watch. You should, but have the willpower to be very careful with it and not go into crazy situations with it, and mow the lawn wearing it, and play golf wearing it. All of those. Well, actually, you shouldn't play golf wearing a mechanical watch anyway. But you know what I mean? If you pamper your watch, then you can increase its resale. But then again, that cuts into why you own a watch in the first place. Do you own it to sell or do you own it to enjoy? Let's see. James, hey, how's it going? Happy weekend. Luca Benovic, I hope it Benovich, getting into watches. What would be my recommendation for a diver automatic sub 2K? Oh, Mito, the Mito Ocean Star or the, Tissot, Sea Star. But the Mito Ocean Star, you can get an Ocean Star chrono for about 2, and it's very, very reminiscent of the Omega, Seamaster chrono, the, Mito Sea Star. I have one in my collection. I'm actually looking to sell it. If you're interested, I'll sell it to you at a significant discount over, retail and below current market price because I sell pieces just to move them along. So, DM me, or you could just email me at, smartalix, ALIX, at, yahoo.com. And, yeah, the Mito's up for grabs, and I'll be more than happy to sell that to you. That'd be a great, diver. It's titanium, blue, um, ceramic bezel, beautiful blue face, and the tachometer's in nautical miles, not land distance, which is a cool variant for a diving watch. Oh, which reminds me to go back. Yeah, oh, I did answer the question between the Black Bay and the Omega. I would go with the Seamaster. Well, I currently own a Seamaster GMT, and I really, really, really like it. But then that's another reason I really like this piece. The Air King has its own style. It doesn't clash with any of the pieces in my collection. Whereas one of the reasons I'm selling the Mito is I do have a blue face diver in my Seamaster GMT. So I had thought I would have it as a beater diver, an inexpensive piece to knock around with, but then I realized that 2K is a lot of, and actually less than that for you. But 2K is a lot of money to be knocking around with as a beater watch, um, and so I'm going to sell it. And when I need a beater, I'm going to grab my original planned beater. Reason I bought it in the first place, the Glycine Airman I have, which is a nice automatic GMT with world time function, and it's dark anodized steel, so it's a really good looking piece, but it's nothing that attracts attention. So that's why I bought it. And steel case and sapphire crystal, so it's a good tough piece. But let's see. James, at Milad Sky, the Black Bay 58 wears smaller, but it also than this. Seamaster Professional, but it also has less water resistance if that matters to you. Water resistance, of course, is more to do with has is more than depth. It has to do with also like dynamic water pressure because if you've got, say, a 10-meter watch, it's not really good for 10 meters because just the act of swimming puts micro pressure on the watch that would exceed its ratings at certain points of the gasket, or even in a shower, if it wound up directly in the stream. Uh, 10 atmosphere 10 atmospheres is best for like washing your hands and oops, you accidentally splash it on the watch. 100, then you're starting to talk about real water resistance. But so frankly, anything over 100 meters water resistance is pretty good for general use and even up to your waist swimming. Which is why so many watches shoot for 100 meters as the go-to, mainstream water resistance acceptability. See, so, Malad, at James Duffy, that's right, but in also considering Tudor, somehow will keep its value following Rolex footstep, but with Omega, it will lose some value. Well, Malad, I would say Omega and Tudor retain the value, about the same. If you look I mean, look at the Seamaster Professional, right? 3, 4 years ago, a Seamaster Professional was 3 to $5,000 used. Today, a Seamaster Professional is between 3 to $5,000 used for an automatic version. Quartz versions are a different issue, and some of the special editions of the Seamaster are worth more. The same thing goes with Tudor, though. Tudor fluctuates because when a new model comes out, the prices pop, but then the prices come back down and stabilize. So, I mean, I'm not saying that the Tudor's going to perform worse than Omega, but I would say they perform roughly the same. They're not going to gain, they're not going to lose a lot of value, but they're not going to gain a lot of value either. But then I say that about watch collecting in general. Never think about it as a way to make a profit. Never think of it as a way to make a profit. But remember that there is value inside of it. It is a watch collection is a value store. If you need a couple of $1,000s for an emergency, you can, sell a few watches. You may lose money on those watches, but you have the money you need for that new muffler or whatever emergency pops up. Watches are in one sense fungible. So, James, at Luca, I would look at the Oris Aquis. That's also a good deal. Rattle Captain Cook. Yeah, I've got a Captain Cook Chrono that only for a little bit more than that I'd sell you. But the Captain Cook Chrono, by the way, I have is for sale. If anybody wants that, let me know. But yeah, the Captain Cook is a great choice as well. But then I said that the last time about James is he's one of the brightest students in the classroom. He gets the gold star every time. He always has some really good input for the group. Alpina Sea Strong, that's another good one. If you want a Swiss diver. Seiko and Citizen have plenty in the sub 1K range if you want a Japanese diver. This is also very true. Seiko has a phenomenal number of really good divers in the sub $1,000 range that you would be very happy with, unless you were really intent on getting a Swiss watch. Or if you decided on just European, you can get yourself a Sin. Pick up a Sin diver. Although they're right in that 2,000 to 3 range, so I'm not sure if you can get a Sin for that price point. But Sin is also a good, reasonably priced watch brand to consider for good tool watches, divers, field watches, and the like. Um, I just did a review on the oil-filled Sin UX diver. Really phenomenal piece of kit. And that watch is in the $2,000 range. Listen, and you don't have to get the oil-filled model. You can get the regular quartz non-oil-filled version, and you're totally under 2,000. And you can get the mechanical for about 2,000 Sin Diver. And the Sin Diver, the advantage of that is it's a fantastic diver, has really great. I think it's 200 meters for the standard mechanical, and it obviously doesn't look like a Rolex. So it really has its own And if you've seen a Sin Diver, you know what I mean. It has its own design language, which is very good, especially for a watch that even snobs respect. Because Sin, nobody can touch Sin. Their stuff is really, really good. They're the only authorized, legitimate Navitimer outside of Breitling. When Breitling needed some money, they bought a license to the Navitimer design. So if you wanted a 38 millimeter Navitimer, Sin sells one, and it's a legit Navitimer made under license. So let's see. James, Mito has a great divers below 1.5. Exactly. Like the Ocean Stars. Yeah, they're great pieces. They really are. And like I said, I've got the Ocean Star Chrono that is up for sale. Longines Hydro Conquest 300 meter is also great sub 2K. Excellent point, Milad. Gold star for you as well. And good recommendation, James. Yes. Oh, if you, and James says a good recommendation. I know it is. Now, let's go back to what we were saying, though. I don't want to stray too much off the topic because there are people who are going to look at this recording later. We're only 20 minutes in, so we're in good shape. I don't want to drift too far off the topic of the whole aspect of the positioning of Tudor and Rolex in the marketplace, because once Rolex was founded and established and developed its reputation in the marketplace as a leader in wristwatches, Hans Wilsdorf started looking for the next mountain to climb, the next kingdom to conquer. And he realized that Rolex was, in one sense, damned by its own success. And it was priced out of the entire marketplace. It was now accessible to the upper end of the marketplace, which suited him quite nicely. But there were a lot of mainstream dollars that he was missing out on because he had a premium product and mainstream money wasn't going to get it. So, by his own statements, he created Tudor as a, B team, as a company that would use Rolex cases and bracelets, and the most important aspect of the Rolex watch in its ruggedness. The case, the waterproof design. In fact, some of the early Tudors had Rolex parts, Rolex screw down crowns, and the like. So the focus that Wilsdorf made was to create a brand with the reliability of Rolex without the cost of Rolex. And he achieved that by using Rolex cases, but by putting off the shelf movements, good movements, but not well, at that time they weren't in-house movements, but it was a closed system movement supplier. In other words, Rolex had an exclusive deal with the movement manufacturer, and everything was branded Rolex. There was a Rolex sign on the building. Even when Rolex didn't own the company, it was very heavily, it was exclusively Rolex and was very heavily branded. So, and eventually Rolex just bought the company, making it de jure instead of just simply de facto. So, um, the Rolex was expensive not only because of the case, but a great part of the value was in this really good movement because, well, this is the new Air King's got the new movement, 70-hour power reserve, and all of the coolness. Rolex focuses on making their movements simple and clean in their layout and design, easy to service, rugged, reliable, low parts count. And yeah, I mean, that's why I've said so many times about having a love-hate relationship with Rolex is you get pissed off at the stuff that's happening in the marketplace, and then you look at one of their pieces and you realize they really do make nice watches. I think in one sense that the Rolex brand is not a watch company in the sense that Tudor is now. Tudor is really the old Rolex, premium, high quality tool watches that you can enjoy ownership of, and they'll serve you well. But Tudor themselves, even in the old days, was considered a good mainstream, high quality piece. But now Tudor's moving into the high end, right? But when Tudor was created, it was intended to be, every guy's, every gal's watch, a mainstream mid-market, not an entry level piece. I hate the term entry level anyway, but I'm not talking like a basic luxury. Like, for example, I would consider this a basic sports luxury watch. Um, but the old Rolex wasn't luxury, it was premium. And so now the new Tudor is the old Rolex. It's premium tool watches. And they're showing a lot of creativity, and they're showing a lot of facings. They've got a lot of great designs that everybody can buy. Um, and here's where the prediction part is coming. The crazy prediction I have that may or may not come true, probably won't come true, but if it comes true, I get to say I called it, even though it's a crazy prediction. Let's look at the comments first so we can build tension on the prediction. Do you think Tudor and Rolex being repositioned upmarket is intentional or response to the hot watch market? Yes, it's both. The market is like a sea. There are currents and there are winds and stars guiding you in different directions. And Rolex is looking big picture long term, right? Rolex expects to be around 100 years from now manufacturing watches for upper uh, level watch connoisseurs, or not even connoisseurs, watch purchasers, because you may be buying it because you want the investment. You may be buying it because you just like the way it looks. You may be buying it because you want to show everybody in the boardroom who the CEO is. And you may be buying it because it's just a cool watch. Um, but Rolex as a brand, as a long-term goal, they've always wanted to be considered the top levels, at the top levels, if not the top level of Swiss watchmaking. And they've been successful. This latest this latest unveiling of product at Watches and Wonders underscores that tremendously. Underscores that tremendously because, this is the first time they've come out with watches with display backs. I talked about that aspect at length, in one of the live streams because I think a lot of people aren't really recognizing what that means. It means that they've decided now to go toe to toe on a quality and fit and finish level with watches in that same price category. And so that means that people are gonna be flipping that Rolex over and looking into the back of it and that Jaeger-LeCoultre, Polaris chronograph. And the Rolex better look at least as good, or they're not, there are going to be people who still buy it because of the name on the front, but there are going to be people who will not buy it if it's lacking in the back. And from the images I've seen, I haven't seen any of them in the flesh yet. From the images I've seen, they're all great looking pieces. So I think that the reveal of the movements in these new pieces are just indicative of Rolex's desire to be considered more exclusive, more high end, more elite. Because one of the biggest criticisms between the Seamaster and the Submariner was that the Seamaster now has a display back and it's really well finished. It may be machine finished, but it's well finished. The Rolexes aren't going to be hand finished. The DeVille maybe, Da Vinci maybe, but the mainstream Rolexes are gonna, there might be some hand finishing, I don't know, I'm not gonna, guess and find out that I'm wrong and be embarrassed, but, I mean, it's probably gonna be mostly machine finishing, but there'll probably be some hand finishing in the system, but the fact that they're exposing themselves, literally exposing themselves with the display backs shows that they're embracing the jump to the high end. And so now Tudor really is Rolex, the old Rolex, because now Tudor is in the ultra premium sports, borderline luxury. Some would say entry level luxury. I don't like that term. I would rather say ultra premium, or I would say basic luxury. But yeah, Tudor is now smack dab in that $3,000 to $5,000, $4,000 to $6,000 accessible luxury, ultra premium watch category. Where you find um, a lot of really, really, really nice pieces. There's a lot of competition in that space. So, Tudor is now, um, a player, a serious player in that space, and they've only managed to do it in the last, decade and a half, and Rolex is now at the top. So, big reveal, my prediction is, just as Hans Wilsdorf created Tudor, as a as an accessible brand, for the Rolex kingdom, as it were, I wouldn't be surprised if they introduce, Tudor Prince line or something like that. Uh, Actually, Tudor Prince line would be a cool, line for a lower end Tudor line, for example, that, used maybe well, you can you I don't know if Etta would sell to them at this stage, but there are a lot of I mean, Solita would sell to them, and there are other, good movement companies out there that they could buy from and get movements that would cost less, or they could dive in deeper with their partnership with Breitling, which probably would give them access to Etta movements because they do have the, movement partnership with Breitling on the B2. Um there's a window of opportunity for Tudor to come out or for Rolex to come out with a or Rolex and Tudor actually, because it's the same company. Just like there's Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche. There's actually a window of opportunity for a, mainstream, or to use the horrible words, entry level brand to be created in the, 1,000 to $3,000 range where Mito and, Rado and Hamilton and so many other companies live. Um, it may not happen, it probably won't, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. What are your thoughts? Let's see. Be good 1, 2, 3 for show. How's it going? Um, let's see, where are we? We're about a half an hour in. Um, so yeah, so when you think about that whole aspect, where do they go? Because now that Rolex has succeeded, they well, it depends on how you look at what you would call success, right? If you look at how success is judged, because in this case, right, how would you judge success? Um, would you say that Rolex is successful if people consider it the same value as a Patek Philippe? I don't know if Rolex is at the level of yet of being considered at the same level as Patek Philippe, or Vacheron Constantin for that matter. Maybe Audemars Piguet. Uh, I don't know if people. I mean, I don't consider it to be on the same level of quality as Jaeger-LeCoultre. So I think Rolex has succeeded in becoming the leader in the marketplace and perceived by the general public to be the best watch available. But as far as the watch market goes, it is simply now in the ultra premium luxury category. It's in the same category as Patek and Audemars and Vacheron, but I wouldn't say that it's in the same, um, wheelhouse when it comes to quality or finish, but they're getting there. They're I mean, this latest crop shows they're getting really close now. They're getting really close. They're the new Rolexes are beautiful pieces, and like I said, love-hate relationship, I recently just bought the new, um, Air King. So, for all of my, talk about how they position themselves in the marketplace and how that may be good or bad for us, at the end of the day, it's about, they're a company that makes great watches, and one of the problems in the marketplace is they make such great watches that, too many people want them that they can make. And there are unfortunately speculators who take advantage of that and are parasites in the marketplace. Um, Not legitimate dealers who have a honest markup, but, you know, there are people who just buy the watch to make money off of it, and not in the sense that a dealer would, because if a dealer is doing it as their business, it's one thing, but if a person just doing it as a one-off, just to make some money because they know that they have access to it so they can flip it, yeah, that starts, it may be legal, but it's not a noble way of going about doing your business, or even a clean way of going about it has a slight dirty feel to it, if you know what I mean. But that's the marketplace. A marketplace has everything: high, low, dirty, clean. It's a spectrum because of the nature of people. We're all human beings, and that's one of the things I say about human beings. Anyway, I'm in the tech industry. I write about hard electronics all the time, and the advanced technology behind these products. And I say all the time, you could take a, 1,000 cell phones and put them in the middle of a field. Come back a month later is just a bunch of soggy boxes. You could put 100 people in the middle of a field, leave, and you come back an hour later, and there's a market started. Even if they're just trading the things that are in their pockets or promises for things when they get out of the field, there are going to be people buying and selling favors and promises and trading that stick of gum for that cigarette, because people make a marketplace. And watches and other material goods are just what we use to interact with other people. In the case of watches, we also use them to interact with ourselves, which is one of the beautiful aspects of watch ownership. Is that if you, well, depending on how you collect watches, but I'm of the mindset as a collector that I'm the number one audience for the watch. And if everyone else enjoys it, then more power to them. But I'm the one that the watch has to please. So, yes, we use things to interact with other people, and watches may be focused more to the individual, but without other people around, there wouldn't even be a purpose to live, much less have fancy watches. Let's see. Always, it's in our nature. Yes, it is. But that's the beautiful thing about people. Well, that's why I'm a gamer, and I haven't played anything new in a long time. I play a lot of World of Tanks, and part of it is because I'm when I'm playing a rote video game, like Halo, like an older version of Halo. You're in the room and you go, okay, there'll be 10 guys coming out of that door, and five will come out of that, and three will drop out of the ceiling. And so you can memorize the room and what the room is going to do, whereas people are unpredictable. You shoot one person, they'll run away. You shoot another person, they may attack. Um, People are that the beauty of people is their diversity and unpredictability and ability to bring out things that are enlightening and informative. And like I said, I work in the embedded electronics in the engineering space, and what I'm often saying about developing technologies is if you take a developing core technology and you present it to 10 engineers, you're going to hear 3 to 5 applications that you never even thought were going to be mentioned, much less useful for that core technology. But that's the thing about creativity. People have all kinds of cool ideas. Mm, Out of beer. I should have started with a full bottle. Well, we're about 40 minutes in, depending on how the flow goes with the questions. We'll keep it going a few more minutes, and then I'll close it out. But we'll see what's going on. James, I think Tudor allows Rolex to stay conservative with their tiny incremental changes as long as Tudor stays in the mid range. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, James. Tudor has been used to pioneer design changes, both engineering and style, that wound up in some Rolex watches. If you think about it, Tudor has done a really good job at both exposing the marketplace to some really cool, interesting designs, and allowing Rolex to play with changes and different things without impacting their core brand. I agree. But then again, that would work even better if they came out with a cool, hip $1,500 watch, to compete with the PRX. What do you think? Do you see Tudor becoming as prestigious in 20 years as Rolex is now? Milad Sky. No, I don't see that happening. Because Rolex can't, I mean, there's a certain limit to how high is up, as it were. And even if Rolex made it to the tier of Patek and Audemars and Vacheron Constantin, that means that there wouldn't be a lot of space below them, for too much space for Tudor to come up, right? So the highest Tudor could go would be in, maybe to compete with the quirky high-end watches like Ulysses Nardin or something like that. But the problem is the fit and the finish on the Ulysses Nardin stuff is so great that Tudor would have to jump really high, or Corum, or some of the other really good watch companies that nobody thinks about when it comes to Swiss watchmaking. So Tudor, the fact that Tudor has become a super premium, ultra premium brand and has now taken Rolex's old spot as the high end ultra premium tool watch company. Yeah, there's not much higher that Tudor could go reasonably, but they could grow within that niche significantly and dominate it, because they don't currently dominate it. They're just a player in it now. But they could get more market share within that segment easily. Take some share away from Omega. Take more share away from Omega. Take some share away from even the higher end pieces from Tag and Hamilton and the like. Um, because those companies may have a lot of stuff in the 1,500 to $3,000 range, but they have a few pieces in the 4 to 6 range as well. And so Tudor has a lot of room to grow within its current niche and just become a more dominant super premium sports watch brand within the industry, in my humble opinion. Like, as I've said many times, this is all just my opinion. I'm not an arbiter of anything, and I'm just a watch guy who can't even stay consistent on his feelings about Rolex. Let's see. So conservative in our nature. So we're about 40 some odd minutes into the show. So yeah, unless we have anything else, I think I always like to, as I've said many, many times, I always like to end it on a high note. I didn't have anything really else wanted to add tonight on the subject. I just wanted to point out how Rolex has pretty much achieved its goal of being in the highest levels of Swiss watchmaking, at least in the consumer's eyes. And Tudor has succeeded in becoming an ultra premium model. Where do we go from there? And like I said, I don't think that they're gonna come out with a 3rd brand, but if they did, I wouldn't be surprised. Can I talk about Breitling in another episode? Well, you know what we'll do is, Milad, I'll make next week's live stream about Breitling. I'll look up, I mean, I know a few things about Breitling already, but I'll look up some. I own a Breitling Navitimer GMT, one of my favorite pieces, and that one, I may part with the Globemaster, but I'll never part with the Navitimer. It's too classic, distinctive, beautiful, all of the above. Yeah, we'll make next week's episode. I talked today about Rolex. We'll make next week's live stream about Breitling. I'll look up some more historical stuff. We'll throw some historical facts in there. I'll talk about what I think about the company and their latest business ventures involving Tudor and the like. And you can ask me any questions you have. James is saying, true, with Rolex moving up market, Tudor is trying to become the king of accessible luxury. We're often in agreement, my friend. We are often in agreement. So, yeah, we're 45 minutes in. I think we had a nice live stream session tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you all dialing in. Um, Tell your friends, check the channel out, and thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I love you all. Have a fantastic week. Oh, Breitling, Tag, and Omega are in the mix too. Exactly. Take it light, everybody. Live long and prosper.